What is up, Westworld fans? My name is BobaTalks, and welcome to my breakdown of episode 3. Now, this was definitely probably my favorite episode so far. That intro with the other park was absolutely fascinating. I love how Westworld... Obviously, the first season was about Westworld, the park that is just Westworld, but now we're broadening so much more beyond that with the real world, other parks, and that intro was a perfect example of that. With the intro with the other park, I loved how we had those two people meeting and they were like talking about how they were hunting Bengals, and this kind of links up with the tiger timeline kind of time frame theory that I was mentioning in my trailer breakdown, because you know, in the present future with who I like to call Floki from Vikings and Bernard, where they saw the sea of hosts, they also saw that tiger, right? So this kind of links with what happened in this episode with that tiger chasing her. But anyway, let's rewind a little bit. That was really funny when they were just trying to test if each other were hosts, and to the point where she shot him. And I love how it gets to the point in these parks where they don't even know if, you know, if they're real or if they're a host. That's just absolutely insane to me. But either way, her storyline seems to be kind of continuing with what is going on right now with the rebellion, or, you know, these violent delights have violent ends, because obviously she was chased away by one of the hosts in that park, and unfortunately the guy got killed. They were walking in and he was just like, oh, finally, like a change in the narrative, you know, horror. And she was just like, I know these people, I traveled here with them, or something like that. And that was just a really cool twist. And then obviously he was chased by the tiger, and I think she kind of bled into the Westworld park. I like how it was like, you have reached the boundary of the guest experience area, please turn back. And then it just seemed like our Westworld was on the other side, and obviously towards the right at the end of the episode, we had that moment where she was still alive and an Indian was right there in her face. So I trust we'll be seeing more of her pretty soon. And this is what we all mean by the timeline, time frame, really trippy stuff. We went to future present, and if you don't know what I mean by when I say that, we have the present with Bernard and Charlotte on the run kind of thing, and then we have the future present, for example in this episode where Bernard met up with Charlotte again, and she was just like, Bernard, you made it out alive. And that might confuse some of you guys, but this is, you know, in the 2 weeks time kind of thing, around that time near the finale, rather than you know, when Bernard was, for example, in the present where Dolores is rebelling, where Bernard was with Charlotte, and you know, he was nicking some of that fluid from the other host to keep his cognitive failures from happening. So there's a couple of different timelines, and then we have like the past with the William flashbacks, but we also have like past and past future. It's weird, it is trippy, but try and stay with me here. But anyway, back to the future present. So near the finale, we had Gustav Skarsgård, who I believe is Cole Strand, with Bernard. They met up with Charlotte. She was like, oh, Bernard, you're still alive. And Charlotte is just quite cold. She doesn't really care. She's like, oh, but good to see you've made it. But, you know, have you seen Peter Abernathy? Because, you know, this is all, as I said, in the finale, and a lot of stuff. And we know Delos is still after Peter Abernathy, which is Dolores's father. I have to say, I love how the timeline slippage at the minute, like I would say more than half of it is related to Bernard's cognitive failures. So as soon as Peter's name got mentioned, Dolores's father, another time slippage happened, and it went back to present day. But before all that happened, obviously we had Bernard and Charlotte. Charlotte escaped, whilst in the meantime Bernard hacked one of the hosts who were holding some of the guests in the park, potentially board members, hostage, and made him the complete opposite of what he was. So he was actually going out of his way saying, oh, I'll escort you, and he was just shooting all kinds of hosts. I just think this show does a brilliant job at discreet, funny things like that, but also, you know, you can't forget at the same time, this is a really serious show, serious stakes, serious consequences, serious things are happening. It's brilliant. So Dolores meets the Colonel. So if you remember at the end of last episode, Dolores recruited quite a few more hosts after quite a bit of hard convincing, and finally she went to meet their Colonel, and this is where the stand starts to begin to happen against the humans, because we also learned in episode 2, or should I say Dolores and everyone learned that 600 to 800 people will be coming after them. So she knew she needed an army, she needed it soon, and she convinced the Colonel. Now I also said in one of my earlier breakdowns that I bet we will be seeing the sweet side to Dolores again soon, or I at least miss it, because we're getting a much different Dolores this season, a much darker Dolores. For example, that tech who told her about the 600 to 800 people, you know, he got shot running away, so like see how far he can make it. She's done a lot of other things in this episode that was also bad, but what was also really sweet and also had me on the edge of tears just because of the acting, but the sincerity to Dolores, because, you know, we can't forget that these hosts are essentially real kind of people now. They have feelings. She's remembering all her past lives. Despite being white, she remembers that Peter Abernathy is very much so her father, even though that was just a narrative. They still have this bond. So the Dolores side is still very much so there, despite Wyatt. I know we've seen cracks of this anyway between moments with her and Teddy, but predominantly right now in this season, Wyatt is full blown there in Dolores' face. But as I said, very refreshing to see those lovely moments between her and her father. It was quite interesting as well. Obviously, Teddy asked who he was, and she was just like, wait, you don't remember? Like, he's my father. So Teddy, no, a lot of hosts aren't as, should I say, enlightened as Dolores is with this whole new host makeover that is happening this season. And the acting from Peter Abernathy as well, that was wonderful. And he was obviously glitching out in a minute because a lot of somebody kind of put this weird coding into him or something, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But in the meantime, he's glitching out, but he came through for a few seconds, and they were talking about how when she ran away from home, or when she used to walk out every morning on the porch with his coffee, and that was just so touching. Now, to briefly touch on the early parts of Maeve in this episode, I thought it was very cool when she just completely froze when she saw the Indian. I just love how she's such a powerful character. She's been overpowered completely to the max, but as soon as she sees this Indian, she's frozen in her steps. So if anything, this just gives more like humanity to these hosts, as ironic as that sounds, than ever, because ever since this awakening, they're just reacting like we would, and I love that. I love Maeve's character. They all escape underground, and this is where I was very happy, because Maeve reunited with Felix, and I know you've got the other guy as well, but Felix is a sweetheart. If he didn't do all the things he did in season 1 for Maeve, like, she wouldn't be where she is now. So I'm really glad that he's back on board, and I really hope he doesn't die. I know Maeve likes him. Obviously they're human at the end of the day, but as I just said, Felix really did help Maeve. So I really hope he makes it quite a while with her wherever she's going, and he'll be very helpful, I'm sure, in the episodes to come. I have to say, one of my favorite lines in the whole, or one of my favorite moments in this whole episode, was when Hector was just like, she has a dragon, because this host who they have been with before, Hector's been with before, had a flamethrower, and that was just hilarious. Hector, even though the hosts are rebelling, and I thought this line was really cool. Lee Sizemore, he was just like, no, what are you doing? Like, when they were holding hands, this is not what you were designed to do. In fact, your very programming doesn't allow you to love anyone else apart from the lady he mentioned. I can't remember at the time who Hector was, meant to be in love with in his narrative. And he just said, when I woke up in the place where you play God, I realized Isabella was a lie, just words in my head, but this is true. And even though it was almost like a double take, it was lovely. It highlights exactly what I've been saying in this review about hosts and how they're awakening. However, Lee finished off Hector's line. So as much as they are kind of doing their own thing, their almost vocabulary or their phrases that they say is still very much so written by Lee. It's going to be interesting how they explore that as well throughout the season, if they do truly get their own calculating independence of what words they can really say. The Maeve storyline kind of progressed. Obviously, they got out of that sector. They make it to the north edge of the park, and that's when a freaking samurai is coming at them. So I can't wait for that. We're finally getting to what we saw in the trailer, the samurai parts of that world. I think it's called like Shogun World. I can't remember. I kind of think that surely Maeve's storyline will wind back up with the rebellion and Dolores. Like, obviously they didn't combine forces back then because she is looking for her daughter. But I'm still glad that they're on their own separate path. It adds this kind of segregation to Westworld, even though there's a much bigger thing happening at the same time. The fans still very much so love Maeve and care about where she is going and what her journey beholds for us in future episodes. So let's talk about when Dolores met up with Bernard, because obviously Bernard was one of the prisoners, or the hostages that the Colonel had, and it wasn't what I expected. I thought she would be a bit more sincere towards him, but I think it's just because he quite isn't Arnold. I like the lines she said that kind of perfectly describe what I'm saying. You don't know who you are, do you? Like the man you're based on. I wonder if there's any of him in you. It's almost like she's looking at him with almost these memories, but knowing that he still isn't the man that she was really close to, which obviously was Arnold. We know how their relationship was, and Bernard, as we know, is and isn't that person. Obviously, Bernard is still going through these cognitive failures. You can see his hands shaking throughout the whole episode. They didn't make a massive deal of it throughout most of the episode, But we see, you know, Dolores ask Bernard if he can fix Peter Abernathy, because he's obviously freaking glitching out all the time. And he kind of figures out that Peter Abernathy is bouncing between old roles all the time, and that explains the really random speech that he's having, playing out probably different narratives at any given moment. But he also said that somebody jerry-rigged a thing character and programmed it into him, and it's masking a vastly bigger file, and this must be what Delos is after. But what is this bigger file? A lot of theories, a lot of crazy theories are going out at the minute. Like, some people are saying that is Logan's father, James Delos, is actually Peter Abernathy, things like that. I'm not so sure if this is going to be as far as that, but maybe the principle of doing something like that, the data is within Peter. But I would love to know your thoughts on that. What is this file that somebody is masked within Peter Abernathy that is causing this massive glitching out in him, and that Delos won so much to the point where this all-out war has happened? But anyway, do we have the file or don't we? Bernard actually got past the vastly complicated encryption or whatever he said that was there, but he had to unplug last minute. Peter got away with Charlotte. They successfully got them, and by the way, that battle was incredible. I love just how ballsy Dolores was. She walked out and like could have got shot in the head, quite literally. She got shot in the side, as we saw in the trailer, shot on the shoulder. I thought it was just amazing. Great job. HBO do amazing things with battles, and seeing it, obviously something different to Game of Thrones with, you know, people from the West with their guns, and then fully fledged, you know, QA, like quality assurance people from the Westworld, you know, sectors going in full blast against the host. It was really cool. I also didn't expect Dolores to kind of betray those people. She even got Teddy to execute, or try to execute, some of the men that she recruited last episode. But as I kept mentioning in my past 2 videos, and I knew something would come of this, Teddy's just been very comprehensive at every corner Dolores has taken. He's supported her, but it's been almost against his morals. Like, because obviously she's got the Wyatt side to her that is very all about this revenge, or, you know, vengeance or justice, whatever you want to call it. But when he takes them out back to execute them and follow her orders, she's still spying on him. Little does he know, and as you guys saw in the episode, he doesn't let that happen. He lets him go. So what does this mean? Does this mean Dolores / Wyatt is going to be kind of hard on Teddy in the future? I don't think she's going to be fully fledged confronting him with this anytime soon. But does this mean that Dolores might get so cold to the point, I could see it, and if quite a few episodes time, she might actually get rid of Teddy. Who knows? It could go out of 2 ways. She might go fully fledged Wyatt justice mode, or Dolores might break through a little bit more. We'll have to wait and see how much Teddy has to do with this. But we know from the finale teaser, from the future present, if that makes sense, that Teddy is in the sea of drowned hosts. So something happens there. A couple of questions I kind of want to leave this and wrap up with. What is it that Dolores wants to go and find in Sweetwater? Because apparently there's something she needs there. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts about that. And what is that symbol in the journal that lady had right at the beginning in that other park? We saw her briefly open the journal, and there was a little bit of a map in it. I want to talk about this at the end, because it's also the same symbol that we saw Bernard when he was hacking into Peter Abernathy, trying to get past that encryption. We saw a very similar symbol. But so has she got anything to do with Delos? Was she also searching for what was, you know, inside Peter Abernathy? I don't see why she'd be in that other park. You know, it's not like Peter's going to be in there. What we do know now is that she is in Westworld, and will she be kind of meeting up with Charlotte if she is in Delos, or will she just kind of be in some other kind of separate thing, trying to find out what is the secrets that lie within Peter Abernathy that Delos so very much so want? Could she be a part of something else entirely, who are after the same thing? I would love to know your thoughts, guys. Apart from that amazing episode, I know I don't get over everything because that's just impossible to. They're very long episodes. Things are very much so progressing. I can't wait to find out what Delos are going to do with Peter Abernathy now they have snatched him. But however, Bernard must have something that he got from that encryption process, so I can't wait for that. What is going to happen with Teddy and Dolores now, since Dolores knows, or should I say Wyatt knows, that he spared those men? But other than that, guys, leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it. Also, guys, subscribe for more Westworld, because I will be doing more Westworld, so be sure to not miss out on a single video by turning those notifications on as well if you do subscribe. Apart from that, guys, I want to thank my patrons. They're appearing on the screen around here. If you're curious about what Patreon is, it is where you can support creators, and just like myself, check it out for some rewards as well. You don't feel obligated to do so, but just check it out if you want to. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.